Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. Very humble start to the show today. I had a McDonald's cup, and I drank all the Diet Dr. Pepper in it, and so I just set it in the trash can next to me. Here it is like a half hour later. I'm about to start the show, and I don't have anything to drink, and so I pull it out of the trash can just to sip some of the melted ice right as a kid from the promo department walked by, and I think they just saw me drinking trash. So, well, that's a good start to the show there. That's why it sounds so awkward. I'm now the trash eater here at Cumulus Dallas. So embarrassing. All right, hey, one thing, now that the election's over and we can all stop pretending, we really were doing Project 2025 all along, right? Glad we don't have to keep that lie going anymore. So the James Show will be your home for Project 2025 implementation. If you have any questions about who's being deported or if you're going to be sent to a FEMA camp or which FEMA camp you're going to be sent to. Also, we're going to start this new project where we're seizing all the ladies' wombs. And we need to know what size, ladies, that you're going to need for your Handmaid's Tale costume. So if you're a single lady of childbearing age, could you go ahead and go to patriarchy.gov? Patriarchy.gov. All right, jokes aside, my first guest, Joe Proenza from the American Principles Project. Welcome back on the James Show. Welcome
to a pleasure, James.
Yeah, hey, it's the first week of Project 2025, huh, Joe?
Well, it seems that the winning will not stop, man. I'm super pumped for it. I think this Trump administration is off to a hell of a start with the nominations we're seeing.
Well, blessed be the fruit. MSNBC over here has not stopped talking about Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. Even if he's not your first pick, it's not like he's picking, the Joker or Penguin, or they're acting like he's a supervillain.
It's ridiculous. I'd argue that Matt Gaetz more qualified than Robert Kennedy Sr. was when his brother appointed him to Attorney General back in the 60s. Their ability to just turn things on their head is insane. And the fear that you've seen on MSNBC and CNN from people like Andrew McCabe and others that were former corrupt Justice Department officials is exactly why Matt Gaetz needs to be the next Attorney General. And I'm really hopeful that the Senate is going to do that. I saw Barrasso today on Fox sounding pretty supportive of him. Mark Wayne Mullen, who's been senator from, I believe, Oklahoma, who's been critical of him in the past, sounded open to voting for him. We can afford to lose a couple like Murkowski and Collins, but this is one of those appointments that's going to show us how willing the Republican Senate is to actually drain the swamp.
Well, and there's a little bit of a bipartisan pushback. And here again, you have one of the neocons from the Bush era. We had the Cheneys and the McCains, and the Romneys not on Team Trump anymore. But you have John Bolton, who's critical of Matt Gaetz, too. So what's the deal with that?
Well, John Bolton being wrong about literally everything he's ever done in government for 40 years. No wonder he doesn't like Matt Gaetz, because Matt Gaetz in the House was a constant critic of his style of foreign policy, which is invade the world and invite the world, a disaster on all fronts. And Matt Gaetz was somebody who pushed strongly against that while he's been in Congress, has been an advocate for an America First foreign policy the entire time. But I think this speaks to a larger reason why the nomination of Gaetz, the nomination of Hague Smith is so important. The nomination of Tulsi Gabbard, all of these people represent outsiders going into government and actually doing what the democratic process is supposed to do. This freaking out because career people won't like it. Well, the career people are supposed to do what the democratic process demands of them. The democratic process gave the Republican Party 53 seats in the United States Senate, the presidency, and the House. And it's time that the bureaucrats execute on that or quit or get fired so that others can.
Okay, so the appointments are getting a lot of pushback, but he's also has a lot of policy proposals. I feel like if he wasn't doing so many things at once, they'd be howling about those. They just don't have enough time.
I think this flooding of the zone here is very, very critical.
Ooh, flooding of the zone. Can I put that in my lexicon? I like that.
Absolutely. We'll add it to your new Project 2025. We've got to push hard here, man. And I think that the Trump team led by Susie Wiles is doing an excellent job, an outstanding job of making sure that we're in the news every day, that we're going to get these people confirmed. I think a lot of people wanted President Trump to support Rick Scott. He stayed out of it, and I think he got important concessions from now Majority Leader Thune, and I think they're going to be very pliable, and I think people are going to be surprised at how quickly they move to get Trump's appointments into confirmation. I'm not going to say they're all going to win, but I think, and it's not going to be easy, but I do think this is the most pliable Republican Senate that we've had versus the Senate that he came into in 2017.
Hey, so Joe, over at American Principles Project, could y'all buy the domain patriarchy.gov? Because there's nothing there. There is a patriarchy.com, but it's for something else, and it's not what you think. But if we could do that and just set up a dummy page, it would scare the pants. So Rachel Maddow would report on it. Joy Reid would have a stroke. We'd be famous.
Yeah, I'm going to work it up the flagpole, James. I give you no promises, but if we don't acquire it, I'm hoping that the James Show has it, and it's just a redirect to your page, man.
All right, I might look into buying that. All right, Joe Proenzo, where do they find you at American Principles Project?
AmericanPrinciplesProject.com. You can find us on Twitter at APP Project or AP Project at AP Project. Excuse me, and please come check us out. We're getting ready for these House vacancies. We got to make sure that we keep the House in line. There's going to be vacancies in Florida 1, Florida 6. New York 21.
Oh, right, because the appointments, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So APP, I already got the clock, man. 355 days until Virginia and New Jersey elect new governors. We're ready to rock and roll over here. So come check us out. Support us if you can.
Thank you very much, Joe Proenza, the American Principles Project. Appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you.
All right, coming up next, Trump continues to make appointments and policy declarations at what's a NASCAR pace, maybe even an IndyCar pace. Are you concerned about any of these picks? And I don't have really strong opinions on some of these, but you'll hear the strong opinions I do have coming up next on the James Show. If you want to jump in with your opinions, I'd love to hear them too. Maybe you can teach me about some of these people, things I don't know. Sometimes I learn from you. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back. It's the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. What do you think about these picks so far? Any comments, any concerns? Were you like, oh, I wish Ken Paxton would have got in. He would have been much better than Matt. And in a situation like this, there's someone out there who knows more than me about these people. In fact, there's probably a lot of people who know something about these picks that I don't know, and you could share it with the rest of us. Do you have inside info? Do you have knowledge beyond that of the average bear? 800-288-9227. And let's just run through some of the picks here. First, the big one, Secretary of State. This is the guy who's going to be the cabinet official that's just charged with diplomacy and foreign policy of the non-military variety. And Marco Rubio. All right, Marco Rubio. He's a guy that loves to vote for big budgets. If there's a government shutdown, he's like, oh, we got to fight to reopen the government. That's not the kind of guy I like. I love a good government shutdown. I want to have the contest to see how long we can shut it down. And all these non-essential workers. What happens if we just fire them? I love a good government shutdown. Now, Marco Rubio does love funding wars. He does love funding Ukraine and Israel and anything else you can come up with where they spend money. And so he comes with a little asterisk next to him because he's sort of the squish, almost rhino, which makes him really shocking for Secretary of State to be under Trump. But I don't know. Maybe he's had a change of heart. Maybe I just have the wrong impression. Next one, Attorney General Matt Gaetz is the one that's getting a ton of attention today. MSNBC literally just spent, and I'm not saying that like your daughter says literally. I mean, literally just spent the last 30 minutes of programming talking about nothing else but Matt Gaetz. Oh, they're coming back from commercial now, doing the John Bolton quote about Matt Gaetz. He's not a big fan. John Bolton, the guy that was telling you in 2010 that Iran was just months away from getting the nuclear bomb, that guy. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Now, Pete Hegseth is a fun litmus test because you can tell who the hack reporters are. If they're like, oh, man, the guy's going to be running the most powerful military in the world is the weekend anchor on Fox News. Are you kidding me? Come on, dude. He was an officer in the Army. He did tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. He got Bronze Stars, 2 Bronze Stars. I don't even know what Bronze Star means, but I don't even have a Boy Scout merit badge. So he's not nothing. Anyway, he is currently the co-host for Fox and Friends Weekend. I've seen him fill in during the week too. But that's a guy who actually was in the Army, multiple tours, probably has a better idea than me about which one of these generals need to be fired. How about any of them that are wearing the wigs? It's one thing if it's the 1700s and powdered wigs are like sort of the style, but that's not what it means these days. So unless you're going through chemo or something, let's start with the wig generals. I don't know. I don't know all the rankings and what order they go into. I just know wigs are a problem. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem is the governor from South Dakota. She just got into that office in 2018. We have quite a bit of a voting record on her before that because she was in the House for a little bit, and she was a state senator before that. So when you look at her voting record, almost a perfect Republican. Fiscal conservative, social conservative. She got a lot of attention during the COVID experience because she was one of the few brave governors that never did the mask mandate. And how did South Dakota do? Everybody die? No, they fared just about the same as everybody else. If not for people like her, the few people that stood up and took a stand, we wouldn't have the evidence to rub in their face to show that your mask mandates were worthless. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Now, she was a Democrat for a long time, 4-term Democrat congresswoman. I'm always skeptical of the people that flip-flop parties, and you can see it in their voting records. You like a good soundbite from that senator in Louisiana, John Kennedy, who has sort of the long Southern drawl, and he says funny things, but his voting record's not something you'd be very happy with. CIA Director John Ratcliffe. Not going to pretend to know anything about him. I just know that he's from Texas. He was a congressman, but I have no expertise or depth on that one. Environmental Protection Agency Director Lee Zeldin. Yeah, EPA Director. All I want him to do is change the locks, kick everyone out, burn the building down, remove the rubble, salt the earth, where the building stood, never to be seen again. I don't think he's going to do that. I hope that's in the cards, though. United Nations Ambassador Elise Stefanik, I don't even know how to say that. She's a Republican from New York, so she's kind of a squish Republican. Kind of fiscally conservative, kind of socially conservative, but she's going to the UN, so who cares? She's not really going to affect your life or policy much about that. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, Chief of Staff, Susan Wiles, Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller, whoop-de-doo. Border czar, Tom Homan. So this is what we have so far. These are the biggest names that are out there. People are acting like Mike Waltz being National Security Advisor is a big deal. I don't know a whole lot about that guy either. So if you can fill me in, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Just want to play you a quick tip here from the Bee. Satan had a press conference after the election. He hasn't spoke publicly since the election, and he's pretty upset that his party didn't do so well.
Well, no beating around the bush, okay? We lost the 2024 election. But it's been one heaven of a week, okay? I just want to say up front that I'm super proud of our team. I mean, the lies, chaos, the hysterical push to trans everyone's kids and put tampons in the boys' bathroom. We did our best. And unfortunately, God and the Republicans just played a better game out there. So, some questions.
What do you think went wrong there? It seemed like Harrison Walz was a perfect candidate.
Honestly, I could have run a drug parakeet and it wouldn't have made a difference. My Democrat followers will vote for anyone who promises them the right to kill their kids. So, the good guys they just wanted it more, I guess. The match was just kind of unfair, okay? It was a little uneven. I mean, it's not on their side. They have the truth, the Constitution, they have prayer, and they have Zachary Levi, the guy from Tangled. And at last, I've seen the light. Anyway, the next 4 years, it's obviously going to be a rebuilding year.
Yeah, Satan's having a hard time after the election. Coming up next, there's a car theft ring that's, they say it's based out of Houston, but it's attacking the parking garages at the airports here. Details on if you would rather take an Uber to the airport coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 98.3. Woo! And so now that the election's over, we can stop lying. Yeah, we were going to do Project 2025 all along. That was the whole plan. So now we are your home for Project 2025 implementation. That's right. We were just lying. We all read all 900 pages and we're like, this is going to be our blueprint for the future. So, ladies, if you are single and of childbearing age, if you go to the website, please, and go ahead and pick out your Handmaid's Tale. What size do you need for your Handmaid's Tale costume? You know, because after January 21st inauguration, it'll just be a matter of time. You'll be walking around looking like a ketchup bottle. Time to seize all the wombs. Go to patriarchy.gov and get your Handmaid's Tale costume for the impending. I don't know. Maybe you'll end up in a FEMA camp. Who knows? It's a joke. It's a joke. I know. Some people take this real serious. Also, while I'm giving out all the secrets, for those of you who missed last night's white people meeting, I know minorities, I'm just going to stop with the lies here. White people, we have our secret meetings that we haven't been telling you about. And for those of you who missed it, though, the new rule to extend pumpkin spice was voted down by the Council of Lizards, you know, our overlords. So you have to continue to pretend, white people, especially ladies, you have to pretend like pumpkin spice doesn't exist January 1st to Labor Day. And if you're wondering why we do that, just to keep them on their toes, just to throw them off. All right, my next guest, Javier Perez, back on the James Show. He's a legal expert that is going to solve a question here. As I bounce back and forth between media platforms, one of them is saying Trump is off the hook with all of his court cases and the whole Jack Smith situation. The other side's saying Trump's not off the hook just yet. What does Javier Perez say?
Thanks for having me. So this is really kind of a question of what's possible versus what's actually going to happen. And just for practical purposes, kind of where the cases are, Jack Smith is not long for this world, right? He's not going to stay in that role once Trump takes office. So that's why there's all this reporting about him contemplating stepping down ahead of time. Not only has Trump already been held to be immune for official presidential acts, that was the Supreme Court ruling from earlier this year, but the Department of Justice has a longstanding policy not to prosecute sitting presidents while they're in office. So if there's kind of multiple layers there that really make it highly unlikely, if it's possible at all, for Jack Smith to be able to do anything. And I think that's why.
Well, did I hear like a little bit of daylight, a little bit of possibility that whoever's after Trump or the next time a Democrat administration gets in, they could maybe revive some of these issues?
You know, I think that's a good question. A question I've had about this is, you know, is there not a statute of limitations on some of these things? We're talking about 4+ years ago, where, you know, it may not be it may not be possible to still bring those kinds of claims. But nevertheless, I do think it's a political question more than it is a legal one.
So what were the Jack Smith charges? Which cases was he in charge of?
So he's got he's kind of overseeing the multiple prosecutions. So there was the Georgia one. There is the Florida documents case.
Right.
And then the ones related to January 6th.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So he's a Jan 6. Yeah. And so, but the Georgia one, that's not under his purview, right? That has to do with the state actors there, like the Fannie Willis and that crew. Do I have that right?
So it just, there's state law violations, but you know, the thought is there was some coordination with the federal prosecutions, and there wouldn't be necessarily federal immunity if Trump were to pardon himself. That wouldn't apply to state law claims. But you know, this is, I think, it looks like a coordinated effort. No, I mean, I think that these things aren't happening in a vacuum.
Well, I haven't heard anything about the $750 million judgment or whatever that was brought against Trump. Whatever happened with that, the Jean Carroll case? Yeah,
so that's a civil judgment or penalty, if you will, in New York State Court. So theoretically, you know, if Trump had not won he could be, pursued to collect that. But again, this is kind of an unprecedented circumstance where you have all these things in the works while he's going to be sitting in office. And I think the kind of overarching rule that trumps those prosecutions is the fact that he can't be prosecuted while he's in office for any state or federal crime.
Yeah, and I misspoke earlier. It was $83 million judgment. I just Googled it after I said that to get the right number. All right, so what happens? What happens next? Is this just all going to vanish in the air like a cigarette smoke?
I think so long as things go according to plan, if, for example, Matt Gaetz or whoever it is going to take on the role of Attorney General, certainly don't expect him to proceed with prosecuting President Trump. And, at the state level, he's got that kind of twofold immunity, being in office and his official acts being exempt. So I do think it's going to kind of fizzle. How exactly that plays out, never say never in terms of what people might try, but the landscape is pretty smooth sailing ahead as far as criminal prosecutions once he takes office.
Well, Javier Perez, I appreciate having a lawyer explain some of this to us. You can find him online, cranebrogdon.com, cranebrogdon.com. Appreciate your time, Javier.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. He's a good man and thorough. All right, coming up next, Texas is now asking for your citizenship status at hospitals, and some liberal doctors and nurses are vowing to not comply. It's not right. It's not fair. It's discriminatory. What's the problem? We're trying to find out how much illegals are costing the Texas taxpayers in medical care. Why not? What should happen to the doctors who don't comply? I'm going to ask you next. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP. Now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP. Now on FM at 93.3. I am your host, James Parker. Oh, you're a little late on that one, studio audience. Well, Trump is announcing some more appointments every day, and we're kind of seeing his second administration take shape. Looks a little different than his first administration, but I think he's going to have one of the same problems he had when he hit the ground in 2017. Even though he has a majority in the House and Senate, he doesn't have a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate. So how much of his agenda, how much of this wish list is actually going to be implemented? That I am not too optimistic about. Let's ask my next guest, Anthony Russo, Truth Will Set You Free podcast. I mean, am I right to be skeptical? We saw what happened in 2017. All it took was like one down vote from one Republican senator, John McCain, and, the attempt to repeal Obamacare went away. How much should we expect out of this one?
Yeah, I mean, certain things are going to be, I think, easier than you might expect in terms of policy, economic policy, because I think they know that there needs to be some major shifts. RFK, I'm one of the people that's completely jacked up about him being put in, obviously, less than an hour ago. His are going to be more difficult because the right, everybody is in bed with Big Pharma. They're all in bed with the FDA. So that one is going to be that one where filibuster numbers are important. I don't know if he's going to be able to get that done. And, that's for me, and I think a lot of the RFK crowd that shifted over to Trump, the votes that really, truly sent him over the top, I think might be a little bit frustrated. There's going to be some level of executive order that he's going to be able to do, but that's still going to be limited to some point in terms of major policy. I think from a health perspective, there's a lot of stuff that the government's going to have a really difficult job explaining why they vote down, when he'll show the reasons and the science behind it. And I think there's going to be a little dissension on that front. But I think economically, I think things will be a little bit smoother than you think.
Why do you like RFK?
I've been granola my whole life. My mom is a holistic practitioner. She did, she was a chiropractor, and she was back in the 90s. She was like, vaccines are going to be the ruination of this country, and seed oils, and we've been talking about that for 30 years. I've done my own, I know it sounds dangerous to the left. I've done my own research for a long time.
Oh, no, you're so dangerous. No, Anthony, you got to trust the experts, Anthony. Experts only. They're never wrong.
get it. But yeah, I've done a lot of research in the last 4 years. That's actually where Truth Will Set You Free started, was right at the beginning of COVID epidemic when I started the show, is I was looking at all of them. I'm like, none of the actual research matches up to what they're presenting to the American people. And that's where I started to become, that dangerous, here, cue the music again, conspiracy theorist. And
just kidding.
Yeah, no, it was just one of those things. That's why I'm a huge RFK fan on a lot of levels. And I there was moments during the campaign where I would be like, I don't want to waste my vote, but I actually support RFK a little bit more than Trump at points.
Well, I hear a lot of people say that. Give me some details. Like, what changes do you expect him to make? I know, like, politically, your sensibilities are probably more in line with the WBAP audience, more so than the traditional RFK fan.
Yeah.
So what do you expect out of him?
So, I mean, if he actually starts, first off, we need to start to match up our food program to what is all across the world and in Europe. We need to remove a lot of the fillers that we use, the red 40s, the yellow 4s or whatever it is, 5, yellow 5. A lot of the stuff that has long-term potential, again, there's mixed research on it, but there's no purpose in putting it in food. I've always been against fluoride in water. Some of those stuff, I think the fluoride in water is going to be a very difficult thing for him to task on, just because there's a lot of mixed science on it. But I think the policy that he is going to change the most is there's going to be more transparency from the hospitals, from pharmaceuticals, and there might be he might revoke what Reagan did in the 80s, where he gave immunity to vaccine manufacturers. And if he can revoke that and that can get passed, which, again, huge hurdle, being the fact that pharma is the largest lobby in this country by about 5 times, I think, at this point. I think that's going to be a hard stepping stone. One that will be a little bit easier is removing pharmaceutical ads from TV, which us in New Zealand are the only 2 countries that allow that. And if you think really deep into that, you wonder why there's pharmaceutical commercials, being the point of a commercial is to go out and be incented to buy something. We don't go out and buy pharmaceuticals. So the only thing that really makes sense to me on why they're on TV is because they're able to buy the media. And I think that that's a dangerous precedent to set. I think that's one of the things. If that's one thing he gets accomplished, I think that's a huge step.
Well, what I'm going to bring up next segment is we've gotten some reports back. The campaigns, they have to file their little reports at certain deadlines. And we found out where, the over $1 billion that Kamala Harris raised, where it got spent. And she was paying millions and thousands and millions of dollars to celebrities and these media outlets and whoever interviewed her for their support. And do you kind of get the feeling, Anthony, that this campaign was just one big grift?
If you were Joe Biden, it would be called. She spent $1 trillion, billion, $100. Was it a grift?
Hang on.
$1 billion, million, $400 trillion, $600 billion.
Yeah.
God, it's even worse than I remember. I don't know if it was. I don't even know what it was. Was it money laundering? Was it a grift? Like, if you were the average, everyday, non-freak show Kamala voter supporter that was like, I'm going to donate $25 to this campaign, I'm going to donate $50, to think that you donated money to people that were already ridiculously rich, that supposedly were presenting a front that they truly supported Kamala Harris, but they're not getting $1,000. They're not getting $10,000. They're getting millions and millions of dollars, and I don't understand. There still has to be a point. They still had to think they were going to win. They had to think that Beyonce at 8 million, whatever that number was at, they had to think that was going to have some kind of impact on people, but it clearly didn't. And then at the same time, they were still begging their donors, not begging, they were telling their donors they were in good shape the whole time. There was almost a lock, especially some of the big donors, and I've seen some of them come out really, really angry about the wasted spending, and then also about the lack of promise based on their research shows that we're going to beat Donald Trump. And obviously, when people are looking at giving millions and millions of dollars, they have a reason behind it. They want something to do where they can affect policy in the next presidential campaign. Instead, they're just out a few $1 million and maybe have a tax write-off.
All right, Anthony Russo, you can find him at the Truth Will Set You Free podcast. Thank you very much for being on the James Show. Coming up next, you're going to hear some of the numbers, and you'll kind of scratch your head. Like, why do you need to pay money to the person that's about to interview you? Isn't there some sort of ethical, questionable gray area influencing their opinion before? Yeah, details coming up in 5 minutes on the James Show. Was the Kamala Harris campaign a grift? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.